Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're going to go ahead and wait a couple minutes to get started, and we'll go from there. Good morning, everyone. We're going to wait one more minute and then we'll get started. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the COVID Recovery Instructional Materials Support Initiative webinar. We're excited to talk to you today about this initiative. My name is Brian Doran. I am at TEA within the Instructional Strategy Division here. Today, we're going to talk through this initiative. And to do so, we're going to talk through a couple things. First is a quick recap of Texas Home Learning and where we stand with Texas Home Learning. Then we'll jump into the COVID Recovery Instructional Materials Support Initiative overview. And for efficiency's sake, I will most likely be saying CRIMSI, as we affectionately call this initiative here on out. So we'll talk through district benefits, we'll talk through requirements of the initiative, and then we'll talk through the application process. And then we'll close out with next steps. So a quick overview of the Texas Home Learning status. Sorry, just quick checking chat here to make sure folks can hear me. Texas Home Learning 3.0 is an optional aligned suite of resources that educators can use either fully or in parts in the new learning environment that we found ourselves in. So there are three main prongs to Texas Home Learning. First is instructional materials. So pre-K through 12, standards aligned curricular content customized for Texas and explicitly customized for the current learning environment. Second is technology, so a suite of technology tools, including an LMS, Schoology, to support student engagement and instructional collaboration. And then third, professional development, so content and technology focused on PD, or content and technology focused PD to support educators with implementation, both in the classroom and in remote settings. So these are the 3 prongs for Texas Home Learning. And this is available to any school system across the state of Texas, and districts may adopt all, none, part, any combination of that within these 3 prongs. The CRIMSI initiative is focusing explicitly on the instructional materials piece of Texas Home Learning 3.0. And so we're focused on how to use these instructional materials in a way that teachers who are using them receive additional support to implement these materials. The materials that we're talking about have all been approved based off of the categories that you see on your screen right now. So unit plans and daily lesson plans aligned to Texas standards, formative and summative unit assessments, teacher, student, and family supports, digital format with printing capability, built-in progress monitoring, and accessibility supports for all learners. And then these are designed to be used comprehensively. However, districts, schools, teachers can all choose to adopt a portion or subset of these materials as you see fit. As an additional support, in addition to Texas Home Learning materials, we are announcing the COVID Recovery Instructional Materials Support Initiative, CRIMSI. And so what this initiative does is it focuses on 3 core objectives. First is supporting teachers in testing high quality instructional materials that support remote learning in a low stakes environment. The second objective is to create more opportunities for students experiencing high learning loss due to COVID. The third objective is to obtain professional learning support to test freely available resources so teachers have that additional support. And to do this, essentially what we're looking for are districts and schools to pilot a unit of Texas Home Learning product in the spring of 2021. In participating, they will then receive free access to professional learning supports, which we'll talk about here more in a second, extra materials like printed pilot units and trade books, and then also stipends for teachers and school admin who are participating in this process. Participating schools and districts will be able to use the core THL products that we've listed below or on this screen. And these materials all have recommended units that we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. But they range from the integrated pre-K product teaching strategies, math options K through 5 with Eureka Math and Carnegie Learning, English language arts with Amplify and Odell, and then Spanish language arts and readings with Amplify K through 5, and science with Great Minds K through 5. Note that we are only focusing on THL core products for this initiative, not the supplementary products. And these products are designed to cover 100% of the standards. One exception here to note is here on the bottom right of your screen. So districts who are interested in piloting foundational literacy, including explicit phonics instruction, may still participate in this pilot. Amplify's materials do include that foundational literacy component for grades K through 2, which are indicated as the skills component of the units and daily lessons. We encourage folks to look at both the foundational literacy and the knowledge-based lesson hand in hand. That's the most efficient way to use Amplify. However, districts will have the flexibility to pilot only the skills component if that's the route that makes most sense for you. So in addition to the ability to trial the THL product, districts and schools participating in CRIMSI will have a number of other benefits to support them over the course of this initiative. So we have the remote learning supports for teachers and resources to reduce student learning loss throughout the course of this initiative, which is really the core two components that we're really focusing on. Additionally, we'll have printed spring 21 unit materials, text and manipulatives for the units that we will cover here in a bit, the recommended pilot units for each instructional material. We'll also have communities of practice and publisher feedback opportunities, teacher and school leader stipends. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We'll have teacher and admin onboarding PD and ongoing coaching. And then additionally, we'll have district access to academic diagnostics, as well as THL planning assistance. In exchange for those benefits, we are looking for a level of commitment from participating districts with a number of things. First, these first four bullets are kind of the criteria that we're looking at for actual piloting. So first, we're looking for folks who can pilot at least one THL recommended unit. We are also looking to identify at least one school within a district to join the pilot, which has at least one grade level within the school joining that pilot. And then that grade level would then be testing at least one THL core product. For example, Eureka Math Teaks Edition. Additionally, we're looking to ensure that the school schedule allows for the minimum number of daily recommended instructional minutes for your chosen pilot unit. And we have more of that in the Appendix A of the application guideline. We are looking for folks to additionally participate in a set of free professional development supports that will be included as part of the pilot participation. We want participating districts or schools to appoint a district or school initiative lead to serve as the main point of contact throughout the pilot, as well as to attend all trainings. And then also ensure joint participation of the district leaders, school leaders, coaches, and teachers, so that vertical participation here to help successfully pilot that THL unit. A couple of other additional optional requirements, but really recommended. One is to test the product with a cohort of teachers within that school to the extent that you're able to. And then the second is to involve families and community members as part of that pilot process. So these are kind of the suite of requirements for participating districts or schools. But we do recognize that everyone is in kind of a different context and situation. And so we want to acknowledge that, and we have flexibility built in to these requirements. So the first are product-based flexibility components. For example, THL products, you can pilot one product or a combination of multiple products. We also have flexibility with pilot units. So we have recommended pilot units, but if you identify a unit that would be more appropriate for your system to pilot, that is one piece of flexibility that we are certainly able to account for. Note that there are additional components there where that might not be able to receive funding for printed materials, for example, if we go beyond the recommended units, but we do have that flexibility built in. Campus-based flexibility is also available. So the school model, if you're in-person, remote, or hybrid, just acknowledging the current situation that we're all in. We also, the grade level flexibility exists. So individual grade levels within a campus or separated out grade levels as you see fit. And then additionally, staff-based flexibility. So we recommend that pilot schools are implementing with teachers who have 2 years of experience or more, but that's certainly a preferred component and not a required component. Additionally, we recommend at least 2 teachers per unit, but the number of teachers per pilot product is flexible as well. So this screen is not meant to be like the 3 options for how you might want to implement, but this is 3 potential scenarios that you might consider as you're going through thinking how this might make sense at your district or at your campus. So the first scenario is an urban district that chooses a single campus to pilot Amplified Texas in grades K1, 2, and 5, with 2 teachers participating in each grade. Let's say, for example, they didn't want to include grades 3 and 4 because they were concerned about teacher buy-in. Scenario 2 is a rural campus that applies to implement both math and science THL products. And then they're focused on all grade levels, K through 5, or whatever grade levels are at that campus. And then the third scenario is a more targeted situation where a campus with a high population of English learner students proposes to pilot only the SLAR materials in grades 1 and 2, with 2 teachers in each grade. So I encourage you to think about this in the way that makes most sense for the schools that you're looking at or in your district's context. And note that I am saying both schools and districts here. So we want to encourage flexibility here for applicants. And so we will certainly be accepting applications from district-based individuals who are applying for a school in their district or multiple schools in their district. We will also be accepting applications from school-based folks, school-based leadership, assuming that they have the support of their district's administration to implement this pilot. We have a number of identified recommended pilot units for each publisher. And so I have examples here in this third column. So for example, for integrated pre-K, we have the publisher's teaching strategies, and the pilot unit that we have is water, and that's the recommended pilot unit. And then the unit length there on the right. Notice in the fourth column for math, Great Minds K through 5, for example, the unit length ranges from 20 to 37 lessons. This is due to each grade level being a little bit different with their pilot unit. And so you'll want to pay attention to the unit length and make sure it makes sense for any grade levels that you're looking to pilot as you're considering the recommended units. This is all stipulated within the CRIMSI guidelines, the application guidelines, which are on THL's website. We'll cover that in a bit here. But Appendix A has a lot of detail around the units available and what their goals are and the actual length specific to that unit for each grade level. And then an additional flag here again. So we have recommended a pilot unit, but districts may choose any unit available for their pilot. Additionally, as you're looking at these pilot units, we'll have access to many of these resources in perpetuity through OER licenses. So just flagging opportunities like Eureka Math Great Minds or OER. And on this slide, you'll see a number of different opportunities there, as well as other opportunities with products that are available until 2023. So this slide kind of covers some of the opportunities that we have available for both OER and through 2023. A quick timeline here for CRIMSI at the high level. So planning for LEAs, we released the application early December, and we'll be accepting applications on a rolling basis in December through January. We plan to have districts finalized by end of February, if not earlier. And then the actual initiative itself will be February through May. And then we'll have a quick post-pilot debrief and decision to continue into the next school year. And so this initiative itself is focused on spring of 2021. However, there will be the opportunity to continue on into 21-22 if you've gone through this process and believe that it makes sense for you to continue with these materials or even beyond these materials in the next school year. on a more detailed basis, so through this spring initiative in the green here, we'll have initial initiative planning and preparation throughout the course of February through April, depending on when you are looking to pilot the unit or units. We'll have a academic diagnostic at some point throughout that course to help inform planning. We'll have initiative onboard training in March and or April. And then the pilot unit implementation itself, as well as ongoing training, would be most likely in April or May. We do have some flexibility with that timing if that timing doesn't make sense for your district. And we would sort that out through the application process. We'll close out the Spring 21 initiative with that post-pilot debrief, evaluation, and decision to continue into the next school year, and then launch the 21-22 pilot program, which will be more for a full year planning and preparation period, pilot onboarding training, and then ongoing training courses throughout the course of 21-22. Again, the application that we're talking about today, the CRIMSI initiative, is focused on Spring 21. And so this 21-22 is essentially an extension opportunity where the decision would be made later on. We referenced stipends earlier on, and so a quick highlight of this. We have two stipend options available. The first is a baseline stipend, which is required for all participants. And this is for folks who are piloting the materials in class, they're attending PD and providing feedback. So this would be teachers or instructional coaches who would be eligible for the stipend. And instructional coaches we mean in the broad sense. So that could be folks who have the role of instructional coach at your campus, or it could be a principal who's operating within that capacity, or potentially even a teacher leader who's operating in that capacity. Additionally, we have an advanced stipend. So this is kind of an either or. This is the advanced stipend would be folks who are looking to add on some additional components to the baseline, which we'll talk about here in a second. So around 6 to 8 additional hours we estimate. And those folks would be eligible for a $1,000 stipend as opposed to the $500 stipend. For the time commitments for the baseline stipend, for the teacher time commitment, we have several components over here on the left. So the academic diagnostic and adoption coach, there might be some potential work streams for teachers depending on how the district is approaching or the applicant is approaching this. We'll have some initial onboarding training estimated around 2 to 3 days, depending on the product. There will be ongoing training, so day-to-day virtual support and an estimated 1 to 2 days of additional virtual training, cumulative over the course of the unit. And then the actual implementation itself. So anywhere from 2.5 to 6 week pilot unit, which will include some weekly feedback surveys, a debrief discussion, and unit results. On the instructional coach or school leader time commitment side of things, it's those same buckets. The training is a little bit less. And then for the pilot implementation, we're looking more for classroom observations, feedback surveys, and a debrief as well. And then the district leader time commitment is similar to the instructional coach. They will help determine the academic diagnostic as well as some of the activities with the adoption coach for that implementation support. The advanced stipend is again eligible for a $1,000 stipend and adds in a couple components here. On the teacher's side of things, or excuse me, let me start with the instructional coach side of things. We have 3 additional review activities. So first is preparation of materials for the CRIMSI pilots, as well as videos of coaching sessions. We'll have classroom observation forms and tracking of teacher and student waiver forms for those videos. And so we have estimated time here and the total time in spring 21. For teachers, this would look like annotated lesson plans, video of the lesson, sample student work, and then distributing and collecting student waiver forms for videos. And so we estimate that this would be 6 to 8 hours of total additional work for either role. I'm going to jump into the application itself before we're able to jump into Q&A. So the application, we have some key milestones here on this screen. First, the application opened on December 8th. You can find it at texasHomeLearning.org. And then we have a series of optional webinars as well as product office hours over starting today through January 8th. So a couple options for attendance there. We'll be accepting applications on a rolling basis through January 29th or until the cohort is full. And we will be looking to finalize those districts by February 26th, likely earlier than that. So we encourage, certainly, you should be prioritizing any application submission by January 29th. And we will be looking to get back to folks within 2 to 5 business days. And the other thing to flag here is we'll be accepting applications on a first come, first served basis. So if you are interested and know that you have the buy-in at your school or district that you need, we encourage you to apply on the sooner side of things. The optional webinars and office hours that I just referenced, so you are currently sitting in the first one here, the option 1 CRIMSI webinar. We have another one right after the new year on January 6th. So if you have other folks at your school or district who are interested, we encourage you to point them there. We'll also post a recording of this webinar on the Texas Home Learning website. Additionally, we'll have product office hours, 2 sets of those. The first is tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And this is an opportunity to have more targeted discussions with the publishers about their units and about their products. So if you have specific questions about that, this is a great opportunity to chat with them about that. The application itself consists of 4 components. We estimate and hope that this wouldn't take anyone any longer than 3 to 4 hours to complete. The first component is a district and participant information form. So this will basically be the essential information that we need to say, this is the product that I'm looking to pilot or products that we're looking to pilot at the campus or campuses that we're looking to pilot it at. Some quick district demographic information. And other assorted information. We then have part 2, which is short answer questions. There are 3 or 4 short answer questions with a word limit of 200 words. So looking to just get a sense of the answers for those short answer questions. We also have a set of CRIMSI assurances as part 3 to acknowledge some of the program requirements. And then an optional part 4, which is letters of support from district leadership or campus leadership. And again, emphasis optional here, but can be included as part of the application to indicate district interest and buy-in. The application itself can be found at the link on this screen. But again, everything should be fairly easy to find if you go to texashomelearning.org. /CRIMSI. And any submissions are through Texas Home Learning at tea.texas.gov. We will be reviewing applications based off of this rubric. So the district and participant information form will be 35 points, and we're looking for a strong rationale for campuses, schools, grades, and the products that you're looking to pilot. And we're also looking for a strong process to obtain teacher buy-in. For short answer questions, we're looking for demonstrations of strong rationale for wanting to join the pilot. Also a belief that instructional materials play a strong role in influencing teacher practice, and in driving student outcomes. And we're also looking for short answer questions that articulate strong, clear definitions of high quality instructional materials. For the CRIMSI assurances, that's fairly straightforward. We're looking for districts who submit the form with a signature acknowledging all of the assurances. The letters of support are not scored, but may contribute to the applicant's ability to demonstrate commitment. And then the overall district interest is a 20-point component where we look across the application to demonstrate for demonstrated interest and commitment for piloting the materials as demonstrated through the application. We have all of this information available on texasHomeLearning.org/CRIMSI. You can send both questions and the application itself to Texas Home Learning at tea.texas.gov. I do want to highlight a couple resources that you'll find on texasHomeLearning.org/CRIMSI. The first is an application overview, an application essentially guideline overview. That document describes the pilot in even more detail and includes the pilot units themselves. And so this will really cover details around what each pilot unit provides, the amount of time that we estimate you would need in your schedule, as well as the length of the overall unit. So I encourage you to take a look at Appendix A within that document. We also have a link to this presentation, as well as a link to the application template itself.
Thank you, Brian. I am seeing a number of different questions come in, so I can go ahead and
Great.
jump in and start to answer some of those. For folks on the call who I haven't met or don't know, my name is Kristen Hull. I'm the Associate Commissioner of Instructional Strategy. And thank you so much for taking the time today to learn a little bit more about CRIMSI, which is a little bit of a funny name, but we're going with it. So I'll walk through these questions. I'll read them out loud and then respond to them. And don't hesitate to continue to put questions in the Q&A section of the webinar. We have a question on, are teachers and admins able to implement more than one vendor or content unit and therefore eligible for more than one stipend? Generally, the first part of the answer is a district can propose as many different products as they want as to be a part of the pilot. So for example, they could say, I want to pilot math and science. We are currently only anticipating one stipend per teacher, but please include in your application if you are expecting one teacher to be piloting in multiple areas, and we can go from there. But right now it has been designed to be one stipend per teacher. We have another training about, will the onboarding ongoing training occur outside of the school day? The onboarding training, every individual publisher will release a training schedule for their onboarding trainings. Our goal is to provide multiple options for districts and schools to sign on to over the course of multiple months. And then we're also trying to provide one option where a school could basically say, I'm going to, take my teacher, I'm going to get a sub and I'm going to help my teachers completely focus on this onboarding training over the course of a large chunk of time at once. And that will just give schools and districts the flexibility for saying, yes, I'm going to try to cover this onboarding training altogether. And then we'll also try to provide more of a series type option where we can provide, carved out, 1.5 hour to 2 hour sessions over the course of a longer period of time for districts and or schools that prefer taking that approach. So they're not pulling their teachers out of school every single day. We will pretty quickly after we finalize the pilot, publish that training schedule for districts from the onboarding perspective, where they can see what's the schedule for each of the publishers as it relates to that onboarding training. like other THL materials, would a district have to formally adopt these materials with our board to use them for this pilot, and or if we decide to use them for instructional recovery in the future? This is actually a district by district policy issue. So different districts have different requirements in terms of what they need to report to the board. We have often found the majority of time this type of pilot is not necessarily something that districts have had to get board approval for, although they may still want to update the board that this is happening. We see the pilot as really one piece of a broader adoption decision. So if a district is thinking about adopting materials in full next year, the pilot is a way to test out those materials in a smaller setting that gives them a lot more input from teachers and their students using the materials themselves. And our goal is at the end of the pilot, we can have some debrief and reflection time and support districts in thinking about, do I actually, like based on my experience in the pilot, do I actually want to adopt the materials in full for next year? So the answer to the question is no, you don't have to officially adopt the full set of materials to be a part of the spring pilot. And we actually hope that the spring pilot is one informational component that helps you make your longer term adoption decision. So if you do choose to adopt, you can, we'll provide some planning supports as a part of the pilot at the end of the school year to say, here's the here's the types of decisions that are important to make. And if you do want to adopt, here's the things that we can help you do between the end of the pilot and the next school year to get ready for that full school year adoption. We have some questions on data. I will say one of the main things that we have done in thinking about procuring the materials is looking at the data around the research-backed approaches to instruction, and ensure that the materials align to that. So all of these materials are very specifically designed for Texas and for the remote learning situation, meaning that when we procured them, we ensured that all of the publishers were going in and customizing the products specifically to support remote learning and specifically to align to the Texas standards. So because of that, they're new products. There's not existing data on their efficacy in the classroom itself, but the approach that the products take and the review process that they have gone through is extensive meaning that we don't release the product until it's completely gone through that review process. So we ensure that it aligns to 100% of the standards. We ensure that all of the units and lessons have remote learning supports. We ensure that there's differentiation for all learners. We ensure that it meets some of the content specific research and supports that are specific to that content area. And we do all of that prior to releasing the units. We have a question. If we don't participate in the pilot, does that mean we can still consider using these for next year, or only those who have participated in the pilot can use moving forward? The materials will always be freely available for all districts, regardless of any sort of participation. You can say, I don't want to do the pilot this year, and I still plan to adopt next year, and that's okay. However, if you do choose to join the pilot, we will also provide some additional professional learning should you choose to adopt next year. So the pilot, we've talked a lot about the spring component of the pilot, but the pilot is really the spring and next full school year for those participating, even though districts will have the option as to whether or not they want to continue into the full school year or not based on their spring pilot results. We also have a couple questions around the number of districts allowed to be part of the pilot. We don't have a total number of districts, mainly because the size of the pilot applications we know can vary so much. So we could have a really large district only submit for one pilot school, or we could have a really large district submit for many schools. And that means something very different in terms of what we can support at the agency. So we don't have a total number of districts. We'll just be looking and accepting applications on a rolling basis until we're at capacity, meaning we're looking at the number of classrooms and the number of teachers participating overall, and we'll take as many as we can support. Do districts have to implement the suggested unit in order to qualify for this stipend? The answer is no. So I know there's some nuance related to the unit, so I'll just highlight it one more time. We do include a recommended unit as a part of the pilot application. This recommended unit for each content area and grade is listed in that detailed Word document that Brian referenced, and it's on the website. If you participate and use the recommended unit, you'll get access to some of the printed materials specific to that unit. However, a district could absolutely choose to pick a different Texas Home Learning unit based on a number of different reasons that make more sense for their local context. They can do that and still participate in the pilot. They would receive all of the benefits with the exception of just those printed materials, given that we likely can't support the printing of every single unit when different districts are using a bunch of different things. So yes, they will. Districts who are implementing a different unit will still have access to the stipends. They just won't have access to the printing and the materials, but they can still participate. We have a question around whether this could be done in conjunction with an after-school program like 21st Century or ACE. We are planning to release some guidance for districts thinking about using the materials in summer school, but this particular pilot is not intended for summer school. It's more intended for the spring. Is there any financial responsibility on the part of districts to participate in the pilot? The main thing that is just important to look at is with Texas Home Learning, the materials that are available are designed to be freely accessible. Many of them, Brian likely covered this, many of them have what we call open education resource licenses to them, which means they're accessible in perpetuity and they'll be accessible forever. And then there's a couple of them with 3-year licenses. And we clearly, it's on the Texas Home Learning website. If you go to instructional materials, there's a product matrix and you can look at that and it'll give you this information. All of the instructional materials themselves are freely accessible. However, there's a couple places where we do call out that there's an additional cost. The main thing to highlight is in English language arts and reading. The teacher materials and the student materials are freely accessible, but the underlying texts to support those materials are what generally have a cost to them. So a simple example might be, I am teaching a lesson on To Kill a Mockingbird. The student materials and like the unit plans and the lesson plans and the student resources are all free, but you still might have to actually buy the book To Kill a Mockingbird. That's the main place where we're seeing, any financial impact on the participation of districts. We have a question on, I'm a rural school with only 1 teacher per grade. You wanted 2 teachers per grade. Would that make us ineligible? So no, we are, anything around the number of teachers and the experience of teachers is not a requirement, just recommendations. So we have historically found that if a teacher does have a collaboration partner in the school, it just does help them when they're implementing something new and different. So for rural schools, one of the things we recommend is trying to group multiple teachers across grades in the same content area. So for example, at least 2 science teachers in grade 3 and grade 4 can do it together, even though they're teaching different grades, because there'll still be some similarities across between the science products across grades. We are, again, especially for rural schools, recognize that this can still be hard. So even if you do have 1 teacher, that does not make you ineligible. You can still apply. And again, one of the things we're trying to do to support teachers in this process is create those kind of virtual communities of practice at the content and grade level. So you could be a 4th grade science teacher, for example, and join this virtual community of practice and be able to talk with other 4th grade science teachers participating in the pilot across Texas. And that really can give those teachers access to people where they can ask questions, where they can bring up barriers, they can bring up issues in a context that's specific to their subject and grade. You listed the printed materials as a benefit. Besides the stipend, what are some of the other benefits participating in the pilot? We can go back to that slide really quick. This is a summary of the benefits. There's the combination of printed materials. All of the professional learning supports will be free. There's access to the communities of practice that's what I was just referencing around the grade level and content specific communities of practice. I do want to highlight this opportunity for publisher feedback. One of the things we hear from districts often is that, in an adoption season for a particular product, they may be able to get a lot of questions answered about products, but, after that, it can be hard to make changes to that product, or if something doesn't quite work the way they thought it would on that product, they have that product for the next potentially 8 years, and it's hard for them to do anything and make those changes about that. So one of the things that we are really trying to do is collect feedback directly from the pilot participants, and take that feedback, summarize it, provide it to the publisher so the publisher can improve the Texas home learning products over time. So trying to create much more openness between the publisher working to improve products, as well as our pilot teachers who are day-to-day using the products in classrooms, so we can make those continuous improvements to the products themselves. The teacher and coach stipends are part of the benefits. And again, the teacher and admin onboarding and ongoing coaching. One of the things here is that these resources and supports are free. So all of the onboarding that you would typically pay a publisher to provide will be free. And then some of the direct coaching in the classroom will also be free. And then access to, again, these are district level supports, an optional district diagnostic, and the THL planning assistance, which can really support a district in just thinking about and or a school and thinking about what are all the things I need to think through prior to launching a pilot in my classrooms with my teachers. So for example, if I have an LMS, are all the materials uploaded to the LMS and accessible there? Have I selected the unit that's going to make sense for my teachers? Do I have a start date identified where we're actually going to make this transition? Do I have the right professional learning training plan in place where the teachers are prepared to participate in that professional learning set of activities? So really that planning support is something that can help with the change management around the pilot within a district or a school. I'm just scrolling for a second. Okay, going back, I'm looking at both the chat and the Q&A, so apologies for me flipping back and forth and giving a moment of silence. I think we answered this one. We do have a quick question just around whether there's any problems with if you choose not to pilot with all of the eligible publishers. I would say absolutely not. You can definitely pick, you may be a district that wants to focus specifically on science for a particular reason, or you may be a district that wants to look at the teaching strategies product, given that you may be thinking about your pre-K adoption and it's a way to test a product before you're making your decision. You could go either of those routes and be perfectly eligible for the pilot. Again, all of the Texas home learning resources are completely optional for teachers, schools and districts to use. And so from our perspective, districts and teachers should opt in to testing the products in the content areas and grade bands that make sense for them. So in the application itself, you'll see a list of products, and you can kind of go and say yes or no in terms of which ones you plan to pilot as well. We also have a question around, could we choose SLAR materials only to pilot? And that yes, you also can only choose SLAR materials to pilot. I think the main thing to think about in the pilot is that you're piloting one of the THL products that's intended to be a core product, meaning the product in full is designed to cover 100% of the standards. But yes, you can choose to only pilot the SLAR portion, and you can. My assumption would be that you're only including the teachers that are teaching those particular courses. I will say on that note, for English language arts and reading and Spanish language arts and reading in particular, the Amplify product is designed for those to really complement each other. So I would just explore that and take a look at that if you are thinking about the SLAR support in the context of RLA. We have, let me go back up. All of the webinars are going to be posted online. So this is both these webinars that we do as well as all of our product specific webinars. So if you are listening and you're thinking, I might be interested in piloting a particular product and I want to learn more, we have been releasing product specific webinars for every Texas Home Learning resource. So for example, for this, the math materials, we'll have a webinar where we do a high level overview and introduction of what's included in those materials. And then we'll also have a short series. It's usually a 3 to 4 part series where you actually can dive in a level deeper if you are interested in starting to use those materials. So all of those webinars, we roll them out across the state as we complete them, and then we post those webinars online for districts. So if you are particularly interested in one of the subjects, you can look on the website and they'll be posted. And if you aren't seeing something that you want to have access to, you're welcome to just send us a quick email. And we're getting a quick note just about the survey. Brian, if you could post the survey link in the chat. There's a 20-second survey link that a district and or school could just quickly fill out just to let us know if you're interested. That is really helpful for us, but also just gives a sense of any outstanding questions that you may have as you're thinking about this. Let's see. We do have a question about if the district level person does receive a stipend. Currently, the stipends are intended to support the school level staff, so the teachers in the school, as well as the person in the school playing that instructional coach role. Again, as Brian mentioned, it could be the principal, it could be an instructional coach, it could be a lead teacher. The stipend is not intended for district staff, and part of that reason is because the stipend supports activities outside of just the typical day-to-day work, and oftentimes the district's work is to support the work related to instructional materials and implementation. We have a couple questions just around asking about how we sign up and what is the number. I'm not quite sure what it is referring to, so don't feel free to put them back in the chat and I can answer those if those were your questions. We have another question. Are the only materials that are provided to those participating in the pilot centered around the recommended unit lessons? One quick clarification here. The digital version of Texas Home Learning will always be freely accessible, and we are releasing, as units complete the review process, we release them for all Texas districts to access for free, whether or not you are part of the pilot. So you can still access many units in addition to the pilot unit on the Texas Home Learning site, and you'll be able to have access to those apart from this specific initiative. For this specific initiative, what we are planning on doing is just also providing the printed version of that unit for districts if they choose the recommended unit. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . We have a question around a teacher who wants to tutor from home using the platform. And we have many parents requesting evening support for students. I would say the best recommendation here is just, every product it works a slightly different way. So for example, there's a couple blended learning products. We've just launched the announcement of ST Math. We also have Mathia, that's a part of the Carnegie product. And then the Amplify product, there's the Amplify Reading K2 product and the Amplify Reading 6-8 product. All of those are computer online adaptive blended learning programs that I think could be easily used at home and could be easily accessed and supported by if a parent wants their students to get some additional support, that's something that they could use to do that. So it's really very specific to products in terms of, I think, how you could think about teachers supporting students at home from a tutoring perspective, as well as parents supporting students at home. I'm trying to. We do have one quick question about the role activity of ESCs. So we're working very closely with ESCs to think about supporting Texas home learning. The ESCs are working, they're very aware of this product or this pilot. We're keeping them up to date. And so we'll be working with them to support the districts who are going to be joining this pilot. And then we also be working with them as they build out their own set of services and supports related to Texas home learning. So in the future, you'll be able to reach out to your ESC directly to figure out what Texas home learning supports they're able to provide. Okay, I think if I didn't answer your question, it may just be because we need to get back more information. But we have 5 more minutes, so I'm happy to stay on in case people have additional questions. But if not, don't hesitate to reach out if you do have questions. We've tried to put all of the resources up on the Texas Home Learning /CRIMSI website so that you can access them yourself, including this presentation, this actual slide deck, the application itself, and a very detailed Word document that includes hopefully a lot more information you may have if you have specific questions. And then there's also an email address that we can put back in the chat in case you do have questions as you're thinking about this opportunity. And then again, want to just highlight that tomorrow we have the product webinars where if you have specific questions you want to ask about a specific product, we will basically have districts join and we can push people into breakout rooms based on the specific product they want to learn more about. And then we'll basically do this series of webinars again after the holiday break. So if you're thinking about this, I would say, the other thing, if I'm in your shoes thinking about what do I do next, one of the things, again, we do hope to highlight and see as a part of the application is that there really is that buy-in from teachers, school leaders, coaches participating in the pilot. And it might be something where you just want to go back to your teachers and start to think about who would potentially want to participate and why, so that as you're applying to the process, you've done some of the early work with your teachers, your school leaders in your district to gain the buy-in of those participating. Okay, I will stay on and answer chats either verbally or in writing. But again, thank you so much for joining. We really do appreciate it. And we hope this, for those interested in Texas home learning, we do hope this set of supports can be helpful for you all. Okay, we're going to go ahead. We are right at time, actually just hit 1 minute over. So we're going to go ahead and close this webinar. Thank you again so much for joining. We really appreciate it.